Welcome to the Science Business Network. My name is Richard Hudson, and we're at the Energy Challenge Conference in Brussels. I'm joined by Carlos Härtel. He's the Managing Director of the GE Global Research Center Europe. Carlos, the title of the conference is The Energy Challenge, Can Innovation Fill the Gap? You're responsible for technology in Europe for GE. Can it?
Now, technology and innovation has to play a huge role. There's no doubt about that. And if you look back in history, last 20 years, the changes that you have seen in the energy arena, if you will, a lot of that has been driven by new technologies. I guess there's a lot of people out there who have smart ideas. If the environment is right, I think it's going to be deployed. But I mean, it's no doubt about it. We're not going to get there without technology, but the capacity to develop it, I think, is big.
Okay, so let's talk about some specific technologies. What is GE investing in that you think it can make a real difference in the world's desire for cheaper, greener, more reliable energy?
Now, first, let me say that, of course, GE is in all the businesses where there's actual demand right now in the world. If you look at power generation, that's the thing I'm focusing on right now. So we are in classical plants for gas, not so much into coal, but to an extent also there, for nuclear to some extent as well, and big in renewables, of course. And that portfolio is something that the various customers around the world really need to satisfy their energy demands. Big bets, well, that may depend a little bit on exactly where you are in the world. I mean, certainly with what happens in the US around natural gas, highly efficient gas turbines are a very important piece of the future energy.
Because there's been a huge increase in the production of gas due to fracking, as it well.
I mean, prices have come down significantly, so gas power generation becomes very competitive again also in the US. On the other hand, renewables, Europe has been taking a lead for years, I mean for decades you'd almost say, and has reached a very high level of penetration already, and there's no end in sight in my view. So we are going to keep investing in renewables, in particular in wind energy, and make those systems bigger, make them more efficient, and let me add that, also make them work together in a more efficient fashion. Wind farm management is a very new strategy to get more energy out of your individual turbines in a larger arrangement.
Management of the wind farm?
The whole wind farm. I mean, look at, if you have a wind farm, there's wind turbines standing in the wake of other wind turbines, right? And optimizing that.
So you get turbulence through the air.
Right, and but I mean, partly optimizing that is a big data challenge, if you will, using all the sensors that you do have to run it in the most optimal fashion. So I think there is lots of potential for improvement still, and I don't think that any of that will be left undone or untried.
Can you think that these technologies, however, could actually really bring down the price of wind energy?
Absolutely. And it has, I mean, if you look at the learning curve over the last 20 years for wind energy, where it started and where it is today, there's no reason to assume that this learning curve is not going to continue.
But why is it so hard to get them into the use and into market?
Actually, it's just how the markets are designed. So now my plea always is, if some people want these things to go out there in the market, they have to make it profitable for those people who invest in the development as well as in the deployment. Otherwise, they're going to sit in the lab, basically. And you don't get things out of the lab that are cheap. What comes out of the lab is always, I would say, an option that has to prove itself in practice, and that has to go through that learning curve and the scale effect that take the costs out. So the longer we hold it back and think like, oh, the lab guys are going to find a much cheaper way of doing it, the longer we delay the final deployment and actually also the good benefits.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Carlos, and thank you for joining us.